Today we're talking about the best setup you can use for 9mm when it comes to ammunition. Now before we get started, let's double check. Since I already checked once, you can see there's nothing down the chamber and there's no magazine in it. Safe direction, we're safe. So when it comes to 9mm, this is the round I carry the most. I conceal carry it. This is the round I'm around most. And I use it a lot for different things. Self-defense, going to the range, going in the wilderness. I use this round a lot. There's a huge amount of options out there, and this is what's worked best for me. Whether it be the streets or the wilderness, you want to make sure that you're using ammunition that's pretty consistent with each other. For instance, I use this P HST for defense, and I use this P 147 grain Federal solid core for wilderness, and then 124 grain Fiocchi and 124 grain NATO, which I don't actually have a box because I just have a huge ammo can full of it. That's what I use because they're pretty similar. And when I say similar, they're pretty consistent with each other when it comes to foot-pounds energy and velocity. The other thing you gotta think about is recoil. So, not so much that you can't control it, but if you go to the range with a much lighter bullet or a much heavier bullet, you're going to notice a difference. Is the difference going to be big? Probably not, but it is going to be a difference. It'll be a huge difference for something like this Federal solid core. This kicks the most out of all this 9mm ammo. Is it anything you can't control? No, not at all, but you will notice a difference in shooting this P 147 grain solid core versus say 124 grain just full metal jacket you might use at the range. So the thing you gotta think about is you don't want to go to the range, have your groupings look like this, and then you put your defensive ammo in and it looks like over here or up here. Every company loads differently. Every bullet that's loaded, for the most part, even if it's a different line on a company, is loaded a little bit differently. You're gonna have variations in your groupings. You wanna keep that as consistent as possible, so finding what is consistent with your defensive ammo as a training round is pretty super important. So for me, what I use a lot is this HST Federal. This stuff is great. This is P 124 grain. And then I'll either use Winchester NATO. NATO means P 124 grain, which I have a can of, like I just showed you. Or I'll use this Fiocchi. This Fiocchi is not too far off when it comes to its performance. It doesn't say it's P, but it does have a little bit extra oomph to it with velocity and foot-pounds energy. That's close to that. And then when I go in the wilderness, this Federal right here, solid core, this stuff really is similar as well. It's a little bit more on the energy, a little bit less on the velocity, but they're similar. You don't want to take 115 grain, just standard like blazer brass, and then use this for your self-defense, because you want to make sure that when you're going to the range, you have a similar setup so you have similar results. You also want to make sure that you actually shoot your ammunition. As you can see here, this isn't a full box. I've gone to the range. I've spent money using self-defense ammo to make sure that it works, make sure it does what I want it to do in comparison to my training ammunition. You don't want to go to the range and just blow through a couple hundred rounds doing training and then realize that, oh, I got to sight in my gun in a little different. You'll make sure you sight your gun in for what you're going to use it for, and what you're using at the range is pretty similar. It might take a little bit of a while to find that balance. For me, it's the Winchester white box NATO. I have a bunch of Fiocchi as well, 124 grain, and then these two right here. That's what I use majority of the time. I got a magazine that's a wild magazine. It means wilderness. That has the solid core in it. And then I have a CCW magazine, which has the HST in it. So I can simply just come downstairs and whatever I'm doing that day, or I'm in the wilderness or I'm concealed carrying, I can just grab a magazine and go. I've tested it all. Make sure you go to the range and shoot your expensive ammo, because you don't want to have your life depend on it, and all of a sudden your ammo doesn't work because you just made an assumption into work because it's this, it's a Glock, it's never gonna have a problem or whatever. Yes, guns might not like certain ammunition. You need to shoot your defensive ammunition. So what you'll normally see is from 115 grain full metal jacket to 124, you're gonna see about a 60 foot-pound difference of energy. You're gonna see about 50 feet per second difference with the velocity. You know, Remington UMC is one that everyone uses. You're gonna see a difference with that. The Winchester white box, just regular 115 grain full metal jacket, is a little bit hotter than all the other 115 grains out there. But, you know, Remington, Black Hills, they use pretty much the same foot-pounds energy, right, 60 less than what you would with 124 plus P. So keep those things in mind and make sure that when you're going to the range, you got a pretty consistent situation between all your ammunition. If you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. If you have a good setup with your training versus defense rounds and what works well for you, go ahead and put it down in the comments down below. And until next time, later.